Welcome to the track session on Indian CISOs and cybersecurity startups. We have with us Mr. Amit Ghodekar. He is the global head of cybersecurity at Covermore Group. He comes with over 2 decades of experience in cybersecurity, information technology, and digital transformation. He was instrumental in setting up the Security Operations Center for small and medium-sized cooperative banks in Maharashtra as an advisor. He has appeared on many TV shows on various channels on cybersecurity and information technology related discussions. Welcome, sir, to the panel. We have with us Mr. Arup Chatterjee. Arup is currently the Corporate Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer at WNS. He is responsible for the information and cybersecurity strategy across the company. Arup has an esteemed career of over 2 decades, bringing in diverse knowledge base and operations expertise. He is an active volunteer with WNS Cares Foundation in driving online safety and cybersecurity awareness for children, which is called CyberSmart. Welcome, Mr. Arup, to the panel.
Thanks.
We have with us Mr. Satish Kumar Dwibhashi. Satish is currently the Chief Information Security Officer at InMobi. He has over 24 years of experience in IT information security. He is Platinum member of Information Systems Audit and Control Association, ISACA, and in the board of ISACA Bangalore chapter, and a regular speaker at various chapters and industry forums, passionate in teaching, coaching, and mentoring. Welcome, Mr. Satish, to the panel. We have with us Mr. Sahir Hidayatullah. Sahir is currently the Vice President of Active Defense at Zscaler. He is also the founder and CEO of Smokescreen Technologies, which is into deception technology to identify and mitigate threats. Sahir has over 20 years of experience in cybersecurity and is a subject matter expert in application security, computer forensics, and reverse engineering. Welcome, Mr. Sahir, to the panel, and over to you.
Thanks, Anand, for inviting all of us, and to all the great panelists. It's great to have you guys here. We're trying to keep everything casual and make sure that we get a lot of covered today because it's an interesting topic. It's a topic very close to my heart, and I know a number of you have really supported the cybersecurity startup ecosystem. So I thought I would start, at the top by just asking all of you, do you have a formal innovation program at your organizations to sort of help bring startups in the door? Is it something that you created, or is that framework already there, or is it more sort of, you're making your own efforts? So maybe we could just go down the stage and each of you can tell us a bit about what sort of programs you currently have in place. So maybe Amit, we could go with you first.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Sahir. And it's really similar like you. This is also really very close to my heart. And I'm really fortunate actually in my last 3 stints, my stint in angel broking and then Motilal Oswal in Covermore, I got an opportunity to work with a lot of startups, and all of 3 organizations where I worked, actually, they were really fostering the startup culture and giving an opportunity to startups. And even some of the organizations among them also asked me to have an incubator program as well for the potential startups. And as I said, I'm really fortunate that I got an opportunity to work with a lot of startups and a lot of innovative, products and services they were offering. And it was actually really helpful, not only from my point of view, but from the organization point of view, that we could actually use those startups for the organization growth as well. Giving an example of my stint in angel broking, when I was working in angel broking, that they are now leading stockbroking company, and specifically in they are competing with the e-commerce kind of a platform and competing with the organization like Zerodha and Upstock. So they are completely digital. So way back in 2014, they actually decided that they will have a journey on digital, and their journey will be specifically on online and e-commerce related stuffs. So they decided to leverage a lot of startups and innovative programs for the startups as well. And I got an opportunity to work on those startups, and specifically in the area of security, because that point of time in 2040, security related startups and the kind of product and services they were offering were very less in the industry. So that was how I got associated, and I actually worked with a lot of startups during that time. My organization, then that journey continues in Motilal Oswal as well, and in my present organization as well. So I got an opportunity to work with a lot of startups, and very good startups, I can say. I have seen startups actually, right from their initial journey to become, very big startups or, a big organization for that matter in cybersecurity. Having said that, I have also seen some startups which could not actually, bring that value to the organization. So that kind of cases also I saw. But yeah, it's a journey, and as you correctly say, that it will continue over the period of time, and we'll have a lot of learnings from that as well. But innovation is something, and I wanted to give a thought about innovation. So we are living in a digital age, and every organization, specifically business, are looking how they can actually leverage services to their customer using digital platforms and digital transformation and mobility and so on and so forth. So that is becoming a very prime area of the organizations to offer their services. And at that particular place, startups are playing a big role. And that's why startup culture is actually, helping the organization. There are a lot of factors are there which we'll discuss over the period of time in this discussion. But the most important thing is that this journey is continuing, and I'm happy to see a lot of startups actually not only in the business transformation, digital, and then technology, but even cybersecurity are coming up, and that is really helping a professional like us who are dealing so much of requirements specifically in the area of cybersecurity, which the big organization cannot fulfill. So yeah, it is helping us a lot, and yeah, that's it.
Thanks, Amit. And maybe I'll move over to you, Satish. So in a not so distant past, InMobi was, I don't think you could call InMobi a startup, but obviously the sort of DNA of the startup continues through at InMobi. So given that you guys are high technology yourselves, how do you think about startup innovation? And I'm sure there's probably a lot of vehicles that you guys have to bring in that kind of culture.
Absolutely, Sahir. Yeah, thanks for first of all having me here. And as you said rightly, in fact, I came from a fintech enterprise. In fact, earlier I was with fintech. Now with adtech, it's a completely new industry. But yeah, as you said rightly, InMobi being one of the unicorn, I should say, the startup, and within, I think the whole culture of InMobi itself was a lot of new young startups took birth out of that, and I'm sure you are keeping track. And so apart from that, personally, I myself, being in the board of ISACA and all, I've seen so many startups, in fact, especially in the cybersecurity space. As Amit said, this is I think the last decade or last few years, we've seen so much of innovation happening, especially from this country. And because there's so much of things to, I should say, while not to say the big boys are always around, but the young startups definitely constantly innovate, and they try to solve certain problem. And I'm sure with the recent COVID and the whole landscape has changed. We never thought that this whole landscape will change so drastically. And means while we always see the CISO community always feels that there are so many products and solutions which are overwhelming. Actually, as a CISO, if you see, it is overwhelming. But having said that, there's still a lot of pockets, a lot of blind areas, right? Which probably still the problems are not yet solved. In fact,
right.
Probably because the big guys have their own, I should say, their own the vision and strategy. But sometimes, if you talk to the CISO community, right, they always say, right, in fact, not all solutions solve every problem, because there's still so much of. I'm sure, sir, you know much better than because you try to solve that deception. And so I think the interesting part is while there's a lot of innovation, but I see there's so much yet to be done, because there's so many new problems what we keep seeing it. And I'm sure India being a great country, I see a lot of traction happening on the cybersecurity space. Just a lighter side, I think we saw a few years back, right, the way fintech innovation, I'm sure my mind-boggling investments happening in fintech and consolidation, of course. I think the same thing I can see now in cybersecurity space, while a lot of innovation, a lot of consolidation, that's bound to happen. So there are new guys coming in, and of course so I think exciting times ahead. And I'm sure, as Amit said, it's a journey and it's evolving, right? We all evolve, and I'm very personally passionate to. In fact, I do a lot of advice for many startups it's just a passion, which because the amount of experience you get in the enterprise, we have to give back to the community, and I love to do that.
Awesome. And Arup, slight spin on the question to you. So what are the sort of key challenges that you face as a CISO when you're trying to sort of promote a startup? So some person comes to you at an event, says, here's a great idea, you think it's used for WNS, but you obviously need to stick your neck out a little bit in the business, make a case for it, and kind of bring that company in. So what are the sort of key challenges you face on selling internally when you actually bring something in?
A great question, Said. And first of all, I will just reinterpret the definition of a CISO, specifically in the context of cyber. But rather than being a chief information security officer, it is a chief internal selling officer for cybersecurity solutions. So more than the product vendors and the new ideas and the unique propositions that we come across, right, whether large or small, there is a lot of journey that a CISO has to travel to be able to convince the organization about the right fitment of the solution, and also prove that this is the need of the hour or this is a solution that we need to bring in. CISOs are always considered as those, the excited kids, the new kid, the new thing that's on the block. We want to pick it up and bring it into the solution, but is it really needed? So to be able to convince the management, to convince the technology ecosystem, because at the end of the day, CISO is only just, getting to the design aspects, identifying the right solutions with the tech teams, and obviously the tech team's involvement is absolutely essential when we're talking about tech-based solutions within the infrastructure. So therefore, the journey that a CISO goes through, it is not really a factor of the excellence of the product. It's a lot to do with the scale, sustainability, and also a precedence, probably with respect to what is the reputation that a company is bringing in. Unless we are talking about a completely unique value proposition, right, that a company is bringing in, which is currently unprecedented in the market. Something that's really absolutely new, right? Probably EDRs 10 years back, or a deception solution 7 years back as a mainstream platform. So that is one key factor which drives the inability for a CISO to bring cybersecurity startups to the mainstream. The thought process is completely changing. Even we as an organization, we adopted a unique platform for our own cloud VPN and zero trust based technology, and we're doing really well because we obviously worked with the company alongside to be able to not only build on that platform, develop on the capabilities, and the overall proximity with the vendors allowed us to kind of craft the product to meet our own requirements, right? So that's a flexibility that obviously comes with startups. Having said that, Said, I think the just going back a little bit, startups were always around, right? Small companies, but the only thing that's currently the trend shift that I'm seeing in the last 7-8 years is the Indian startups gaining prominence, right? Earlier we used to work with startups from all over the world were trying to bring in a unique proposition, right, and evaluate them in our environment, whether it's a point solution or whether it's an enterprise solution. But now, with the ecosystem, with the so many companies doing great things out there, there are many more Indian startups who are now coming to the forefront, who we are already working with, or evaluating, or working within developing their products to the next level where they can be enterprise ready. Just to give a small context on this same area, with respect to the contributions from our perspective to the cybersecurity ecosystem and the startup ecosystem, I think DSAI itself, or the national COE platform itself, where some of us are already working as mentors and advisors with startups, has actually given us a platform to gain proximity to cybersecurity startups, right? So some of us are already interacting with cybersecurity startups offline and actually understanding their product DNA, understanding where they're headed, and also trying to make them enterprise ready. So I'll probably just take a pause here. We'll probably at the same breath we can continue to the next question.
No, that's a great answer. And I think, one area we do want to get into is on the ecosystem, right? And I know each of you have, in your personal capacities, contributed to that ecosystem. So maybe we kind of tee off on that topic, right? So Amit, Satish, one of you, maybe do you want to talk a little bit about how you've seen the ecosystem develop? Stuff like national CEO is obviously very helpful to the startups. I mean, I can, from my personal experience, that probably many of the things we were able to get done, we wouldn't have been able to do without organizations like the SCI and NASCOM kind of bringing us front and center. We just didn't have a way to kind of reach folks like you guys. But how do you see the ecosystem developing, and what are ecosystem challenges that you think need to be addressed today to sort of bring the right startups to the right organizations? I'll kind of leave it open to either of you.
Okay, I will take it up this. So it's really important actually how we are going about the evaluation of the startups and what kind of a role we are going to play in that ecosystem. And I can say that DSCI COE is really playing a very good role, in the fostering of the startup culture. And specifically about the evaluation criteria which DSCI is having for evaluating those startups. But apart from that, in the community also, I have seen a lot of traction, specifically in the startups, and many of the CISOs are having closed groups within the CISO community where they are actually interacting with various startups about the products and services which various startups are offering, and what kind of a collaboration the CISOs are having with them, and what kind of benefits which we can get, or I can say what are the value add these startups can bring for the organization. So I have seen of late, like last 1 year odd, I have seen a lot of closed group conversation within the CISO groups happening around it. And there are a lot of CISOs within the community itself who are actually taking initiative to, avail such kind of a product and services from the startups rather than from the big boys in the market. And they are ready to, leverage their platform to give an opportunity to startups for evaluation. And that is really materializing. So there are a lot of friends of mine who are actually, looking at this particular area as a big area, and they're contributing to the success stories of the startups. So this is one thing which is happening over the period of last 1 year. I have seen specifically last 1 year, I have seen a lot of traction, a lot of interactions, and a lot of communication within various groups and even one-on-ones about this particular stuff. The national CIU part, as you mentioned, and that is also really helping. People are now asking about which are the startups which are evaluated by national CIU, which are the startups which can give or bring value for the organization. So those kind of questions are also coming. In fact, I can go ahead and say a little bit more on that. Even a couple of CISOs friend of mine even asked me about fundraising for the startup. So this is something new actually, which I heard actually. And some of the CISOs also say that can we have some opportunity to do funding or investment in the startups, or we can become a mentor to the startups. So a lot of good traction is happening. In fact, in my previous stint, as I mentioned, and I actually slightly touched base on that about my previous stint in Motilal Oswal. So when I was actually interacting with my board and my execs, that point of time, and Arup rightly said about that CISOs are someone who are actually selling technology within the organization, and that is absolutely true actually. So we as a security professional, we have to sell that technology or solution, and right technology and solutions. So when it start actually getting materialized, then automatically the board and the exec start actually getting a confidence on you, and they actually leverage you to take a next step ahead. And that is what happened in my previous organization when I was working. Actually, when that culture was getting inculcated, my organization actually given me an opportunity to do incubation for the startup. In fact, my organization told me that they were ready to give a space also for the startups to come, sit and do the research work and provide solutions and services and so on and so forth. So that is something which I have seen in my past organization, and that is also happening. And I'm pretty much sure that this trend will continue in the other big organizations as well. And I'm pretty much sure this must be happening as well in the background, because we might not knowing about it. But I have seen a lot of such kind of tractions happening, and stories which are coming in to us also. And another factor about the startup journey is specifically about some of the big organizations are also taking interest in the startups, specifically in cybersecurity startups. So I have seen some large organizations are actually asking from the point of view of investment, or from the point of view of setting up an incubation center or leveraging their services, kind of a stops for the startup and cybersecurity. So that is also happening. So large organizations are taking interest, and I have seen not only in India but even in the US or Europe markets as well. I have seen a lot of hackathons which are happening over the period of time where large organizations have given an opportunity to cybersecurity startups for showing their products and services, and giving an opportunity to them to do investments and so on and so forth. Presently, I'm working with one of the organizations, which is an Australia-based organization. So in Australia, also I have seen there is a specific, like Australia Cyber. There is one entity which has been set up by government of Australia, which is actually giving an opportunity similar like DSCI. They are giving an opportunity to the startups for providing their products and services, then similar kind of evaluation and investment as well. So a lot of things which are happening across the globe, and this is something which is not only going to help the Indian startup, but they will also get an opportunity to collaborate with the overseas hackathons and service providers and various things. And India market, as you see that the growth story which we are seeing in India market, specifically last 1.5 year post-COVID, the growth story which we are looking out for, that is phenomenal. So this is going to have a multiple growth for sure in coming years, and this will give a lot of opportunity, specifically in the area of startups. Yeah, and Satish, all yours. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think already you have spoken everything. So Amit, but just to add, while I know DACI and they're doing a great job. So Sahir, and I'm sure you agree, it's not about the product, but it's about the product validation. In fact, so that's where a lot of informal groups I see, in fact, in the CISO community, and I should say thanks to COVID, I think it has given a lot of time. In fact, I think a lot of travel time has been cut. So people are passionate, especially, of course, we have all this Arup and, especially the senior guys who have really spent a lot of
Sorry, did we lose Satish?
I guess so. Yeah, he's back.
Oh, he's back. Yeah.
Okay. I think so. Basically, it's talking about the code has really given us a lot of time. In fact, while one side is investments and the funding, but the second side is product. In fact, what product? And I think the best thing is the CISO community, right? They talk to each other. In fact, as Amit said, right, we're all part of so many informal groups, right, where we talk of various products. In fact, we help each other. In fact, in so many informal, right? We have so much of WhatsApp groups and all where we talk of product. And I think the key part of any product, right? While there a lot of innovation happens, but I think nothing can beat the validation on the ground, right? The CISO, when actually we normally call, right, when the rubber hits the road, right? When the product actually sees the enterprise, in fact, what are the typical teething issues, how to improve the product. I think that really helps the startups basically because it's a straight validation coming from the practitioners who are actually putting it on the ground to improve the product. I think that's equally a very important Sahil as part of the overall ecosystem, right? It's not just about, because I normally say you can have a great idea, but the articulation or the translation and solving certain business problems is very important than having a great idea. Because I think most of the solutions start with some great idea, but then as the product evolves, I'm sure, right? That's how most of the, I should say, very successful products which came out because they thought that, okay, let's expand. We started with solving a problem A, but then I think there is a complementing problem B, problem C, and let's try to solve. And I think that's where the whole ecosystem, the CISOs, the cybersecurity practitioners really can validate, work with this. And I'm very happy startups listen. The CISOs community also have time now to go back and, in fact, spend time. And I think that's a great thing which is happening now, I see, in India. And that's how we see it together collectively, right? We see a lot of success stories, right? It's no more just it's no more Bay Area story or what you call the RSA trenches story, right? We have, India is also like Bangalore is one of the startup capital. And so many startups, I really see it's exciting times.
So Satish, that's actually a good, jump off to my next question. And I want to make life a little difficult for all of you, right? So I want to ask you, from the perspective of a startup, there are two typical challenges that we face, especially with large organizations, which each of you represent. So the first is, all of you spoke about the fact that there's flexibility when you work with a startup, right? You get to guide the product direction, right? It often is a concern for for startup founders that they may be building a snowflake, something that is very, very, very good for organization X, but may not be very useful for the broader vision, but they're heavily dependent on you, maybe financially in the early stages, right? You're one of their first customers, right? So how do you balance that? Yes, these guys can definitely solve this problem for me, but it may not make sense for them to solve it for me because it's not good for the, for their product roadmap, part one. And part two, another challenge that is commonly faced is most of you have fairly strong compliance driven organizations, and you might say, supposing a startup comes to you and says, okay, I'm going to have a cloud security solution, for example, right? You'll say, no worries, here's my 257-page checklist of compliances that you need to meet, and they're not going to be able to meet any of those because they wouldn't have built single sign-on, they wouldn't have built enterprise logging, they wouldn't have SNMP monitoring, right? And these are very practical challenges because you need to deploy those solutions with a certain degree of assurance. How do you guys think about this? And I'm not directing this to any one of you, but I'm sure you would have faced this. Maybe Arup, I'll direct it to you then, because you look like you had something to.
No, I had to answer that point about the compliance bit, right? So I think those days are, we have gone past the days where compliances used to take precedence over real life security and real life security challenges, right? So the CISO mindset has definitely changed, and I can vouch for that. So, what the other part is about sustainability, right? What you brought about. So today there are many point solutions which solve a unique problem, but at the end of the day, the right question is, will it be a economically viable platform where the vendor will be able to sustain me for a long period of time, right? So I think the point that comes here is about the networking that we currently have within the CISO community, which Satish currently spoke about, and Amit also, alluded to the same. Is when I have a solution, or when I have a solution to a unique problem, the first thing that I do is you have to be an ambassador to take the message to the rest of the community and pass the knowledge that you currently have, so that the problem can be solved at other places also. Because my problems, while would be probably present in another ecosystem as well.
Right.
I think the knowledge sharing within the community is extremely important. Since we are on the topic of cyber, so the knowledge spreads very, very quickly, because the security community is very well connected in India, at least on informal channels. Therefore, the viability of the products, as long as there's a great idea, as long as I was saying there's a unique value proposition that somebody has, the product will shine. It's a matter of time, how long and how much time that it's really take, right? And I've seen some of these products really taking shape, who have come with unique ideas, and they've been able to take it to the next level. So we'll just take a pause there.
Yeah, and maybe Amit, you can chime in because you did speak. I know you had a pretty strong eval criteria, right, which you developed, right? So maybe speak a little bit more about how do you evaluate something that's so new? Like maybe someone's come to you with no track record. So you've got that chicken and egg situation where you're saying, who else is using it? And they're saying nobody, but they can't get anyone to use it because nobody else is using it. So how do you evaluate it? Do you evaluate the people? How important, for example, how important is it whether they're funded or not, right? How do you look at that problem?
Exactly. So this is really a chicken and egg kind of a situation for a person like me, actually, or any security professional, specifically when we are looking at the cybersecurity startups. The main challenge is that you're not giving them the opportunity to work for the business problem, but you are giving them opportunity to solve the cyber problems, which is again itself, it's a big problem actually for all of us. And when we are looking out to solve the cyber security problem from a startup, the security professional responsibility actually doubles up, because there is a catch actually. It's a catch-22 situation, because the startup which is coming to your environment, they are new in terms of their knowledge in the cyber security, and they are new to your platform as well. So risk actually goes multifold. So when you are actually doing the selection criteria for any cyber security startup to actually come onto your environment and do even a POC or any kind of evaluation, it's a really difficult task. So you cannot attribute the same level of evaluation criteria which you are doing for the biggies for the startups. So you have to have a different evaluation criteria for them. Now you cannot say that for the normal organization, when you are doing an evaluation, you can say that what is the profile of the founders or the co-founders, or how many people are working with them, or whether they have their space, whether they are certified for ISO 27001 or PCI or SOC 2. So these kind of standard things are there or even for that matter, what kind of a turnover the organization is having, what kind of a presence they are having, which all people are there in their board, so on and so forth. So these are the criteria which are there for the matured organization, but these criteria you cannot apply for the startups. Because when it comes to startup, sometimes it may land up that there are only 3 people are there. One is a founder, second is a co-founder, and third is the one who is actually having the concept and he's developing that product for that particular startup. So it's really a difficult job for a security professional to evaluate. Now, how you can do that, and that is where actually your experience and expertise comes into. So when you are actually interacting with a cybersecurity startup, the first thing is that you have to understand what kind of a product or services they are bringing to you, or what kind of a value proposition that product and service is going to bring to your organization and that ecosystem which you are referring for. This is the first thing. And second thing is that what kind of passion these guys are having for bringing that actually, because I have seen some startup actually started from 3 members and now they are having 300 members. That kind of startups I have seen over the period of time. So that growth has happened in 2 years kind of a time. But then what kind of a passion or knowledge they are bringing, or what kind of information sharing they are doing with you, for creating that product. So that is the most important thing. Second is that what I can see is that most important evaluation criteria is that how and what kind of a market study they have done. Okay, that is a very, very important, because some startups are actually bringing some products or services without not doing study about the market. So whether they have really studied about the market, whether they have seen if this kind of a product and services are available in the market, or who are their competitors and what their competitors are doing, and what different they are doing against their competitors, and what kind of a value they are going to bring. So that is something which is a very important aspect. And believe me, the startups who are actually working in this particular stuff, specifically about the competitor analysis and where their challenge lies in that particular competition, they are really bringing values. Some startups are there who are actually, even not having a competitor itself. So they are the one who are the first comer in this particular. They are the first one who are bringing that kind of a concept or product. So then you have to apply your own thoughts. You have to do a research, and you have to see that whether this particular product or service is really going to bring some value. And then it's completely a judgmental thing, which I can tell you. Like, believe me, it's all about judgment, and this judgment has to be applied based on your experience and expertise. And maybe you have to interact with your close group, as we discussed in the past, that you have to discuss with your close group. You have to see and you have to take their feedbacks as well, that whether this will work or not work. And most important thing is that your colleagues in the organization, maybe they are the one who can actually help you to gauge this startup ecosystem. So these are some of the things which usually come to my mind and which I apply. And I fairly see that as we discussed, I have seen many startups are evolving, and they are really providing good offerings, which is a good thing. I have seen very less startups who are actually got failed, or they could not actually come to that expectations. But yeah, I think it's becoming a really good ecosystem. It is becoming a really very good ecosystem. And I will take a pause over here.
So Satish, I wanted to ask you something, where we, I got this idea as Amit was speaking about, when we talk about funding, right? So a lot of Indian cybersecurity companies, because the investor ecosystem is still building up here, it's come a long way, right? Candidly, how important or how much of a draw is the fact that you can get some technology probably cheaper? So maybe, let's say, a Cisco, we've talked about the flexibility of building something, right? But let's say Cisco has a solution, but there's somebody local. Candidly, how important is it that you may not want to? One is obviously you want to de-risk, right? So you want to take a bet on that particular technology, but you don't want to put a whole lot of money into it. Also because it's a startup, right? You're not going to hang your hat on that. But on the flip side, the startup, especially if it's bootstrap, is probably going to really count on that check for getting to the next stage, right? Maybe to the next 5 customers. So talk to me a bit about, and very candidly, how important is it that a startup will be cheaper, or do you view it from the lens of, if it's product market competitive, I'm ready to pay product market competitive price? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot there.
No, that's fine, Sahir. I think that's I think most of the CISOs take that conscious call. In fact, absolutely, you said right. I have, in fact, I have my own experience of trying to support or work with a very young, I should say, mobile AppSec company. In fact, just to add, I know what you said, and of course Amit said and Arup said. So the CISO mindset also is changing. In fact, so one thing is for sure. Traditionally, CISOs were also, let me be very honest, means trying to be more demanding, right? And I want to solve all the problems, right, with one solution. which I think we all come to know that you cannot solve all the problems. So I think sometimes it's good to have that, that clarity of thought. What exactly are my, means from, even for a particular space, like, okay, I took an example of a mobile app sec, like now while I can demand to the startup to solve all my problems, but then let's list out the top 5 challenges what I have. And if that startup is really helping me in solving the problem, but I went through with a very young startup, I don't want to name them, but they did a fabulous job, in fact, and we together, in fact, it's also like the CISOs are more like, working with them, because see, it's again, I told it's a validation. So when you work with them, they are also very happy, because, and then as I think Amit said, look at the roadmap. Less demanding. When I say less demanding, because I know, Sahir, it takes time, a lot of efforts, money, because you cannot expect the version 16 to come in next to version 2, right? Because some feature which is there, probably they have a roadmap. So talk to the founders or talk to the guys who are really, and I think the best thing is to first see, okay, let's look at this, and probably if at all something which is really burning, which is a showstopper, you can always talk to them, saying that probably this a feature which probably you plan for version 15, if you really get it in version 3, probably the product will. It's not just my requirement, but a broader industry that really works. And actually, I'll tell you, it did wonder. In fact, it was like a partnership. It's like whether it's like a family, means they are for you, you are for them, and together you succeed. In fact, I think which probably may not happen, right? If I just if I talk in that the big like I know I cannot drive Cisco or a Juniper or even, for example, for a checkmarks, like it's next to impossible, right? Probably these guys who really believed in you, you believed in them. And I think the point is to solve the top 3, top 5 problems, not trying to solve your top 20, everything. Because sometimes it becomes unrealistic. Sometimes users are too unrealistic to say this solution, okay, because startup hai, chalo usko, let's do arm twisting, by but it should solve all the problems. It's not possible. So let's be realistic. I think, and thanks, Arup said that the CISO mindset also is changing now. In fact, we also understand, yes, in fact, they're doing a great job, and let's work together. And it's a partnership. And I think I've seen a lot of solutions built like this, and they're doing wonders. And the startup also knows that, oh, this guy is helping us, So let's work with them. And but we were a beta customer for them. In fact, as the solution. And you also feel a lot of satisfying, the satisfaction comes together we have built this. In fact, we just become advisors, but then it's such a great satisfaction to see a product. In fact, and for them it's validation happening locally, but then they take it to the world and the product succeeds.
Oh, I think that's very well said, and I think you've put it in the right words, and I'm actually quite heartened. My experience is probably a little outdated, but there's Arup, you mentioned this whole idea of the changing CISO mindset, and I'll give you a problem statement I had. I was sitting, I think 2015 or 16, when we first bought the product to market. I was sitting with a CISO at a very large organization, and he said, yeah, you're a startup, so I'm going to go look at your competition. And my competition was from the Valley. My competition was from Israel. The funny thing is they were all startups as well, right? They had probably the same revenue, the same team size, etc. But back then, there was a mindset issue. It wasn't just that you were a startup, you were an Indian startup, right? So I faced this. Talk to me a bit about, do you see this now? So, when you look, obviously you want the best solution, right? But there's a benefit to a local startup which you can work with. How do you view this in this lens of, let's say, there's a competing startup in the Valley and a startup over here. Do you sort of view them differently in some shape and form?
Okay, I will answer this question with 2 different hats on. One as an enterprise CISO, and the second as a security professional from India who believes in promoting cybersecurity startups in India, because we have the right talent and the right mindset and the everything that we really need to make these organizations successful, right? So from the CISO's perspective, so Sahir, the days you're talking about, when your product was specifically emerging, right? Organizations were not just, so we're talking about pre-ransomware economy or pre-ransomware explosion economy, or the barrage of phishing attacks economy that we were probably looking at. The entire problem that we're seeing, especially skyrocketing in the last 2 to 3 years. The people so there was a lot of compliance-driven mindset. There was a lot of feel good that you had to bring in when you were striking a larger deal, tying up a partner, with a partner who was based, as I said, based out of Chandigarh versus based out of California. Yeah. So the point is that definitely played a lot of differentiation, even though the facts were actually inverted. The partners who were actually based out of India probably had much better support ecosystem because of the proximity to Indian companies. And not to mention, I think one of the key things was that the startups were treated a little differently because startups were being driven by geeky young boys, who were probably top talent, but they were not those suit-clad guys, sitting across a conference room and talking big things. So they were promoting an idea which was brilliant. And on the other side, you were facing a company which was promoted by venture capitalists with a lot of funding and a lot of promise, etc. So that mindset was there, but that mindset has significantly changed. And then especially the post-pandemic world, right? In the last 2 years, things have propelled to a different height, especially the way we have seen some of the government initiatives, especially, as I said, DSCI, METI, and the overall NCOE initiative helping, plus so many private, venture capitalist organizations supporting cybersecurity ecosystems, plus the community coming together and helping these organizations. The problem statement is dissolved. So as a CISO, now I will answer this question from the perspective of a security practitioner. Today, my mindset, what we currently need to do, we are a hub of cybersecurity talent, which needs more attention, further grooming, government support and sponsorship, right? And also a lot of heart from the private large corporations to be able to allow them to come and do a POC within their environment, to be able to pilot the environment and prove a point whether the platform really meets the eye, right? So that is the opportunity window for allowing startups. Obviously, it's not a solution in search of a problem. You have to have a problem first before you go and embark on take somebody's solution. But if you really have a problem and if somebody has an answer to that, allow these guys to come and prove their point. Right? There's so many intelligent solutions out there, and they are doing really well. So we have to follow the Israel approach, what Israel did to, and today we all know the success that we see. So, right, every brilliant solution out there is somehow got some links back there. Yeah. So that is the model we need to really bring about in our thought process, not only as a enterprise leader, but also as an individual, making sure we promote Make in India platforms and solutions.
Yeah. That makes sense. I think I'm keeping an eye on the clock. Anand, I don't know if we have the ability to do Q&A.
Yeah, we could take one question and then we could close with a closing remark, Sahir. So there's one of the attendees have asked a question. It's a very long question, so I'll try to shorten it. So does it help to have a team at, say, large organizations who can engage with startups continuously, something like an open innovation team to kind of do a business evaluation of startups, also bring in that innovation and latest trends internally that might help the change the mindset of the folks, right, the business folks. So does it help to have an open innovation team which can work and continuously engage with startups and also provide that opportunity to startups in a large organization like WNS or CoverBook? That's the question.
I guess, probably I'll tweak the question a little bit and then open it to the panel, which is, it obviously the answer is it would help. Could you give us maybe a one-liner specific of how you think it would help? So if you have an innovation committee, what do you see it as, taking off the load from you guys, or what could it be? Maybe a one-liner how your innovation centers or committees would help.
Yeah.
So Sahir, probably I can start with that actually. So I have seen a lot of organizations already have innovation teams, who are taking not only about the business problem, but the technology problems as well, which include cybersecurity. And most of these organizations, specifically the large organizations, these initiatives are driven from top. So including some of the organizations, the CMDs or the CEOs are actually taking active interest, in the innovation and the startups and, the evaluation of the products and services, which can bring some value for their organization. So this is happening, and this is shaping up in a big time. I'm pretty much sure that over the period of time, not only the large organization, but the mid-sized organization and even the smaller organization will also come to that party, and this trend will continue. But yeah, this is happening right now, and Satish and Arup, you can actually contribute to what I said on this.
Yeah, so Sahir, transformation remains transformation in innovation labs exist in organizations such as WNS and in larger organizations. But the idea is at the end of the day, as I rightly mentioned, right, especially post-pandemic, I think there's too much on the plate to deal with, right? Everybody, whether it is a CISO, whether it's a CIO, we already have a very large, because everything has been inverted, especially for enterprises such as us. So finding the right pockets to create these innovations is important. Yes, a formalized team would help. But at this point of time, I think we need a centralized body, which is already in place for that matter. NCOE is doing a brilliant job and DSA is doing a brilliant job, which is actually publishing reports of the organization which are right fit for the right solution or right problem statement. And so they are already doing a first level evaluation, and a lot of CISOs and industry experts are already connected with this body. So individual validations are great within organizations, but we already have an industry validation by a very large community, right? Which is adding to the overall, the comfort that the organizations will bring before they even walk into their organization for a first level check. Right? So that's my point of view here.
Having a central kind of clearinghouse in that sense, and DSCI has a number of reports.
Yes, which should be made by the experts, which should be made by the industry, by the experts from the industry.
Satish, any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's already happening. May not be as informal as a lot of informal channels. We all part of informal channels. But yeah, I think most of my panelists spoke. While DSA is doing a great job, but I'm sure I spoke with a lot of large communities, right? We all are part of those and trying to help, and definitely it's happening. But it will take time to, as you said, right, to have a much formal channel, which definitely is a better industry validation.
So Anand, I have 5 more questions which I could run, but I know that you want to keep us to the clock. So I'm watching your face for cues as to whether I should stop talking.
Yeah, we can close off. Thank you so much for coming together and sharing your insights with the attendees. So thank you so much, and I'll request the attendees to switch over to the main auditorium.